Hi, my name is Drew Contreras, and I was born and raised in Spain as an Asian American. Um, so I'm a first generation Spaniard where I received a lot of culture background, and I grew and I learned in schools in Spain. And the only family I had were my parents. So I relied on friendships, I relied on the community I had, all the friend groups that I gained in the time through sports, music, conservatory, and other, really fun avenues where I got to, culture myself and then nurture these friendships that I was really thriving in. I moved to the United States when I was about 15 years old, 14, 15, and it was a great time for me to expand and go to high school out here and learn more about different cultures and just putting myself out there. And what I learned was, as I was putting myself out there in these different situations, even in Spain and then in the United States, I've received a lot of different feedback and then behaviors from other people who I've been dealing with. And from the start, in Spain, because I was dark skinned and most of northern Spain is predominantly white, I would hear things like, hey, like, because my mom, she's American, she's from New York. People would go up to her and ask her in Spanish, like when we're on the bus coming back from the library or from karate, they would ask her, like, hey, like, what are those children speaking? Like, are they speaking Chinese? And those kinds of things would happen in Spain a lot. And when I moved here to the United States, um, it was a different experience for me. So it wasn't because I was speaking English anymore, it was because I spoke Spanish. And it was a really interesting thing to see that people really focus on, the superficial aspect of things like my skin color or like where I'm from, or they don't even want to know where I'm from. They just automatically assume I'm Hispanic. And I was working, a good memory that I had was I was working as a subcontractor doing different like landscaping as well as like drywall and just helping house flipping thing and was with friends, so it was all fun and games, and it really wasn't like that high stress of an environment with the contracting business, but we're flipping houses. And my older brother and we got put on the landscaping portion of this one house in particular. And so my boss, who was my friend, who had bought this house that we were flipping and remodeling, and the boys came over and they were like, hey, like, are you done? Like, are the Mexicans done? And they were just like really kind of racially profiling my brother and I as Mexicans because we were just doing landscaping work and we were dark and we were brown. And I don't think that's an appropriate way to conduct business. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today in this persuasive speech, is about racial discrimination, whether it's with friends or whether it's in the workplace. It happens, and I remember, even when I was a little kid that hey, are they speaking Chinese? And we were speaking English, but just because the way my brothers and I looked, they thought we were speaking Chinese. And so it's just been a culture of the way I've grown up is to just really see everyone as equal and not really base it off of, appearances. So I moved to California in 2017, and I was expecting to go to college at Vanguard University, which I did. And I had an undergraduate opportunity, which was kind of like a foot in the door phenomenon. I feel like many universities were attracted to Asians. And so I, used that as kind of an avenue to get into Vanguard. And my uncle helped me get a scholarship, and I was on a provost and president's scholarship for my undergrad. And it was really a beneficial time for me. But even when I was working full-time at Chick-fil-A, I would get a lot of different, because I spoke Spanish, people automatically assumed I was Mexican. And there's nothing wrong with that, but no one really, tried to figure out, oh, like, he's actually Asian, or, oh, he's just from Spain. And I receive this on a daily basis, and I feel like this is something that United States and then this world as a whole can really learn from. Because in Spain, there's a different, it's not, it's kind of like subculture. Like I feel like there's a lot of different cultures in there, from like Romania to Serbia, and there's a lot of different culture, right? And people just really want to say that Europe is a democratic continent, and that everybody's equal, and that there's no territories, but in reality there are. And even developed countries like Switzerland or Sweden, they're doing the same thing, right? They're profiling people groups into these like small categories, the same way I was categorized as Chinese, or the same way I'm categorized today as Mexican. And I don't think that's correct. There's a really influential piece in discrimination that people really disregard, and it's the just automatic assumption of people's culture, and it's a race bias. Happens to me on a daily basis, even now. So I was a teacher, I was teaching Spanish, and I thought it was a great way, to teach kids, like, hey, like, this is where Spanish comes from. I taught them Spanish culture, and even with these American children, it was hard to really, help them understand that, I'm not from South America, I'm from Europe. Or, hey, like, I'm actually Asian. And it's kind of a funny thing for people to really digest, is that, I have 3 cultures. I'm first generation Spaniard. I have a long lineage of Asian in my family. And then I'm also, white American. So it's kind of a mixed thing. And just finding that little niche to like really settle into is hard. And I feel like everybody can learn from this, is that, discrimination and race bias is a still fight that's going on, and people still view, others as like maybe inferior, or just like they automatically assume something about a person without actually diving deeper into who they actually are. And this is like my experience, and I wanted to show race bias and discrimination and how it's affected my life. And so I hope to see some, intervention, and hopefully we can all learn from this story. And yeah, thank you for listening in on my experience.